Hello and thanks for joining us for a late night newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story tonight, Korea has earned itself an upgrade from credit rating agency Moody's. The country's rating is now at an unprecedented new height with a stable outlook. Our Park Ji-won starts us off.
Moody's Investor Service has raised Korea's credit rating from Aa3 to Aa2, meaning it's now at an all-time high. The Aa2 rating is Moody's third highest ranking out of its 21 levels, and it's the first time Korea has ever received a rating within the top 3 notches from a major credit ratings agency. Explaining its upgrade, Moody's said Korea's economic growth and government finances are stable and predictable, and Korea's institutional strength is expected to ensure the implementation of structural reforms. Moody's also praised the Korean government for maintaining a prudent fiscal stance. It said Korea's government debt is expected to remain stable at around 40% of GDP, and the country's proportion of short-term external debt has fallen significantly. Moody's predicted that Korea's credit fundamentals will remain strong over the next 3 to 5 years, but noted that Korea might face challenges due to its rapidly aging society and relatively high exposure to China's economic slowdown. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, it was a daring mission in unforgiving conditions, but a Korean fishing boat has been rescued by the country's icebreaker 1 day after it got stuck in ice in the Antarctic Sea. Korea's maritime ministry says the fishing boat is currently in a safe area. The 62-ton Sun Star sent an SOS call late Friday after a much larger ship failed to pull it out of heavy ice. The 7,500-ton Korean icebreaker Aa2 successfully freed the stranded ship earlier on Saturday. The Sun Star's 39 crew members, including 7 Korean sailors, are all safe. They have been ordered to evacuate to the larger company vessel, with 5 of the crew staying behind on the Sun Star for maintenance. Now, there could be a glimmer of hope for peace in war-ravaged Syria. The world's major powers have unanimously endorsed a peace plan for the country, but have stopped short of addressing the future of President Bashar al-Assad. The roadmap, adopted by the UN Security Council, calls for a nationwide ceasefire. It sets out a timetable for UN-supervised elections within 18 months. Now, 4 key measures will be implemented immediately. They are stopping the use of indiscriminate weapons against civilians, allowing unimpeded access for aid convoys, halting attacks on medical and educational facilities, and releasing all detainees. The head of the UN's Seoul office, set up to investigate human rights violations taking place in North Korea, is pondering whether to make a trip to the country. In a telephone interview with Radio Free Asia, Signy Poulsen said the most challenging part of her work is that she has to gather and check information on North Korea's human rights situation outside of North Korea, and that's why she's considering visiting the North. But she stressed that any trip would have to be approved by North Korean officials. The UN's office in Seoul opened in June. People in Beijing are facing yet another suffocating period of toxic air. The latest blanket of smog started smothering the Chinese capital on Saturday morning and will last for 4 days. In response, officials declared the city's second smog red alert warning in the space of 2 weeks. Half of the city's cars have been forced off the road, schools are closed, and residents have been advised to stay indoors with doors and windows shut. Barbecue grills and other outdoor smoke sources have been banned, and factory production restricted as well. Now, Beijing is forecast to suffer from levels of the deadliest airborne particles at more than 20 times the level that is considered safe by the World Health Organization. The pollution is expected to peak on Tuesday. Korea has rolled out a plan to have 1 million eco-friendly cars on the nation's roads within the next 5 years. As part of those ambitious efforts, starting next year, all newly constructed apartment buildings will be required to have designated parking lots for electric vehicles. Park Se-young has this report.
This company's fleet of 29 electric cars are being used for commuting and work activities. These cars are convenient and cost-efficient, but drivers are often hesitant to travel long distances in them.
With the lack of electric charging stations, I think many drivers worry about the car stopping midway.
Korea's Commerce Ministry has unveiled its 5-year plan to popularize the use of eco-friendly cars. The ministry said it will provide over 1 million green cars over 5 years and triple that number by 2025. However, there still remains a lot of work to be done. Currently, there are about 340 electric charging stations in Korea. That's less than 3% of the over 12,000 gas stations nationwide. The Korean government has promised to create an additional 1,000 charging stations within the next 5 years. In addition, apartment buildings being constructed from this point on will be required to provide charging stations and reserve parking lots for the convenience of electric car owners. Starting next year, special license plates for electric vehicles will be introduced to provide discount benefits and to put more small electric cars on the road. However, the government's subsidy for electric cars will be reduced by nearly $3,000 to just over $10,000 next year. According to experts, the future of electric cars depend on the development of improved models that can travel over 300 kilometers on a single charge. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, in international news, scores of citizens have been reportedly killed by military and police in Ethiopia over the last few weeks. Human Rights Watch says at least 75 people have been killed and many others wounded during attacks on peaceful demonstrations. The Ethiopian government, which previously announced the death toll at 5, has not responded to the report's claims. Student-led anti-government protests began back in November over the government's plans to take over territory traditionally occupied by the country's largest ethnic group. Human Rights Watch says the Ethiopian government labelled the protests as terrorists and applied anti-terrorism legislation to quash the peaceful movement. The United States is looking into Beijing's complaint that a B-52 bomber flew near one of China's man-made islands in the South China Sea. The Chinese government says the incident near one of the disputed Spratly Islands on December 10th was a, quote, serious military provocation. Chinese military personnel were put on high alert and issued warnings to leave. Now, the Wall Street Journal reports that one B-52 unintentionally flew within 2 nautical miles of the island, possibly due to bad weather. China claims the majority of the South China Sea, but is locked in territorial disputes with a host of neighbours in the region. Now, Star Wars The Force Awakens has hit theatres in the United States with the biggest box office open in history. It beat out the final Harry Potter movie with $57 million US dollars on its opening night. The film is expected to bring in $200 million on its opening weekend in the US, meaning it might break the record set by Jurassic World earlier this year. The Force Awakens also raked in $73 million on its first 2 days on international markets. Industry sources say it might join the exclusive $2 billion club. That said, the massive box office taking is set to be dwarfed by sales of BB-8 droid toys, lightsabers and the like. Analysts expect Star Wars merchandise will generate some $3 billion in sales this year and over $5 billion in 2016. Now, this winter, there's a great lineup of musical productions featuring some of Korea's biggest heartthrobs. A couple of Korean movie stars take centre stage in 2 of the productions. Won Ji-yeon has this report.
A tragic love story of a young man who falls in love with a woman who's engaged. This beautiful production is Korea's musical adaptation of an 18th century German novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther. It's also actor Cho Seung-hoon's second time playing the title character Werther in 13 years.
The love portrayed in this musical may seem pure and beautiful, but Werther must experience a tremendous amount of pain in order to win that love.
Here's a classic tale of Dr. Frankenstein, whose obsession to create life ultimately came at a price. The musical version of this English novel has become a sensation here in Korea, sweeping awards in as many as 9 categories. To top it all off, actor Yoo Jun-sang takes center stage at the performance. You can check out the musical production of Frankenstein at the Chungmu Art Hall until February 28th. Won Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, finally, leaving you with a brief look at the weekend weather. We have another chilly night in store. The overnight low is going to drop to -4 degrees Celsius tonight in the Korean capital. Sunday will be partly cloudy across the central region, with the afternoon high in Seoul topping out at 5 degrees Celsius. With that, let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website, arirang.com/news. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.